I watched all 8 seasons of the original Dexter show, and I gotta say, the show was really good, and I can see now why it was one of the best shows to come out in the 2000s. I've been missing out on absolute peak all my life, and yes, I too was surprised and completely caught off guard when I heard Dokes say,
"Surprise, motherfucker!"
Yeah, this entire time I never knew where that line came from until now because I never bothered to search up the origins of the sound effects, so from that moment on I knew the rest of the show was gonna be good. But before I start yapping about my enjoyment and dislikes with the show, let me give you a quick synopsis of the story for anyone who doesn't know about the show, and for anyone who doesn't want to be spoiled, you had 19 years to watch the show, so honestly this one is on you at this point. Plus, let's not forget the fact that the show's popularity has blown up this year around June, so you've probably come across a bunch of clips of the show being posted on TikTok and YouTube Shorts, along with maybe even some edits. But anyways, the show Dexter follows our main protagonist, Dexter Morgan, who is a serial killer and a sociopath. What makes Dexter different from your average serial killer is the code that he follows religiously that was given to him by his foster father, Harry Morgan, which explicitly states the main rules of only kill murderers who have escaped from the legal system, obtain evidence of the murderer's absolute guilt before killing them, never let anybody know you are a serial killer, never let anyone in your life get too close to you, even his own stepsister Deborah, blend in with society, never kill an innocent, and the most important rule of all, don't get caught. These rules were given to Dexter as a means to live a life where he can control his dark urges to kill people and see their blood, and instead put them to good use, to get rid of other killers who slip through the legal system and get away with their killings. This gives Dexter a moral compass to go by in life as well, and it allows him to kill freely since most people don't care when a killer is gone. And this also gave Harry Morgan a way to help his son manage his dark urges and make up for his own crime of getting romantically involved with Dexter's biological mother, who he used as an informant for a drug case in which she was horrifically killed by being cut into pieces with a chainsaw in front of a 3-year-old Dexter, who was inside a cargo container at the time and was then taken in by Harry's family and raised by them, as this was what caused Dexter to become a sociopath in the first place. Dexter lives his life alone, spending his free time doing normal stuff like driving his boat, eating out a lot, swimming, bowling, and obviously working a job as a blood splatter analyst, which gives him access to a lot of useful tools he can use to conduct his killings. He also has a relationship with a woman named Rita, which he first used as a way to blend in more with society, but slowly over time came to develop a real love for her and her kids, and even has a biological son with her later on. Through his time working at Miami Metro Homicide, Dexter faces many obstacles, like having to make sure his stepsister Deborah, who works as a cop and later on goes to climb the ranks, never catches on to him and his killings, as well as all of the other people who work in that department. Some of the serial killers Dexter goes after give him a hard time, and at times almost manage to kill Dexter. All of this while having to balance his work and social life, and while trying to kill, with the main goal being not to get caught. However, over the years, Dexter slips up multiple times and even strays away from the code a few times, mainly because of his selfish desires, and the people in his life either get hurt or killed, with the main people in his life being his wife, who gets killed by another serial killer that Dexter was going after but took too long to take action against, and his sister Deborah, who by the end of the series gets killed by blood loss after getting shot by a bullet. Oh yep, I forgot to mention, she bleeds out in the hospital and goes into a coma, so she becomes a vegetable, which I gotta say, her death was just bad writing. But anyways, his stepkids Cody and Aster being left with their grandparents, and even his son Harrison, who in the end gets left behind with another woman because Dexter felt that he couldn't raise him without messing him up. And by the end of the series, the fake life Dexter built at first as a way to blend in and not get caught became real to him and something that he actually valued despite lacking emotion, but ultimately was lost due to his sociopathic and destructive nature. I enjoyed watching the show, but if I'm gonna be honest, only the first 4 seasons were absolute peak because the rest of the show is good, but not the best. Apparently the main showrunner for the series, Clyde Phillips, left after season 4 in order to spend more time with his family, which is great for him, but was terrible for the rest of the show's run. Now, some people might disagree with me on this, and I ask that you politely go fuck yourself, because I do not care. Some of the gripes I have with the later seasons include how Aster and Cody just get forgotten for the rest of the series, only appearing 2 times after season 5, how they immediately gave Dexter a new love interest, Lumen, right after his wife Rita died, which felt like a forced plot point, because to me, it felt rushed. Like, the whole point of Dexter and Rita's relationship is that it happened slowly over time, because Dexter, who was thought to be a complete sociopath, found that his emotions were just suppressed, making it hard for him to feel emotions, but not impossible. He was still able to develop real feelings for Rita after being with her for so long. So the whole thing with Lumen feels like they ruined that part of Dexter's character, and later on they kind of did the same thing with Hannah. But at least with her, it happened much later on, and more so as a plot device to give Harrison a person to be left with in the end. Season 6 with Travis and the whole biblical steps he followed to bring the end of the world felt so over the top. However, I do think the plot twist revealed of his mentor, Professor Geller, being dead the entire time, revealing Travis was schizophrenic, was the only good thing to surprise me that season. Brother Sam plot was pretty boring to me. Season 5's only interesting plot was Quinn hiring a sketchy cop to look into Dexter's background, since he suspected him of killing his own wife. Season 8 was alright, since they finally had a good killer for the end of the season, Saxon, who basically had nothing to lose since he just killed people right in the open, somehow not getting caught right then and there, but he was truly a sociopath. Like, this man was just doing it for the love of the game. But I digress. That and many more little things I could keep going on about, but I think now is the time I would rather talk about the characters that stuck with me the most. Dexter is just like me for real, except for, you know, all the killing and stuff. Aside from that, there are definitely aspects of his character that I can honestly relate to, if even just a little. Like, his love for food, especially sweets, shows that he can get enjoyment out of the small things in life, because unless Dexter is working his job or out killing, for the most part, you literally see this man with food all of the time, showing that while he does need to eat a lot of calories since he expends a lot of energy working as a blood splatter analyst and killing his victims, not to mention maintaining the peak of his physique during season 2. I mean, goddamn, just look at the shoulder and chest muscles pop out when he's wearing the Henley shirt for his kills. It shows that Dexter doesn't just eat food as a fuel source to keep going, rather instead actually deriving enjoyment from the meals he eats, although sometimes he will just eat an energy bar to skip a meal. Another part of his character I can relate to a little bit is the awkward interactions he will have with some people in a social setting. Because Dexter lacks emotions, he often finds it difficult to talk to people or relate to them, since he fails to pick up on social cues or read the room, because he doesn't know how to actually empathize with people's emotions, only being able to read their facial expressions to tell how they're reacting.
Aster, what's that?
Ah! Oh my God! Dexter! What were you thinking?
She was wearing a bathing suit.
However, I was raised differently. With some common sense and the help of my friends, I learned how to at least behave appropriately in most situations and how to pick up on basic emotions, which is literally the bare minimum that every person should have. But anyways, back to Dexter though. Because he doesn't know how to act in society sometimes, he often spends his free time alone, which is the part I can relate with. Doing every activity he enjoys alone, since it means he doesn't have to keep up an act around other people, and he can just be himself. Obviously, the way he takes care of himself is admirable, although off screen and only shown in the intro. It shows he gets in his exercise with a treadmill and maybe he lifts, but I think that most of his lifting comes from lifting dead bodies. And he keeps up with his hygiene in order to look sharp and mog everyone around him.
Dexter Morgan.
Which I think is something everyone should strive to do, as it is literally just good for your health. But also the way he just acts carefree and optimistically in life, even though it's him acting for the sake of blending in, is something that shows that he doesn't worry too much about things in life and just enjoys it for what it has to offer him. Lastly is the fact that Dexter is extremely intelligent. This one I can't relate too much to since I'm retarded. He literally works for the police department, the same department that catches killers and criminals, and is able to not only kill right under their noses, but even at times destroyed evidence that would have linked him to any of their investigations. At least this was the case for the first 4 seasons of the show. Overall, Dexter is the GOAT of the series, and this show does a good job of making you root for him despite him being a serial killer. Deborah Morgan. is a hoe! She literally dates with not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, but from what I counted,
7 different guys.
holy shit. Dude, I get that she had issues with her father, but like, chill out. That shit cannot be good for you mentally. This part of her character was kind of understandable once you see it's because she never really got any attention from her father after her mother's death, meaning she lacked a real male figure as a role model in her life, since from that point on in her life she was forced to be alone since Dexter and her father spent a lot of time together, leaving her alone. But then the show ruins this by making Deborah fall in love with her own stepbrother. You nasty ass bastard! Holy shit. Aside from that, her character is actually pretty good because she's very hardworking and manages to climb the ranks in Miami Metro Homicide, going from cop to detective, then to sergeant, and finally lieutenant. She definitely got a little help from her brother and was maybe a little favored by Captain Matthews, but for the most part it was all her, and to see her work so hard to get to that position only to fall so low in season 8 after quitting her job as lieutenant since she was ruined by Dexter after choosing to shoot LaGuardia instead of him, thus making Deborah compromise on her morals, feels so sad to see. And then her eventual death that comes by the end, knowing she died believing that she deserved her own death. Her character is very tragic. Dokes is a menace, but unlike Dexter, he did his killings out in the open. Because he was ex-Special Forces operatives and was left with PTSD from it, he retired from that position, instead going on to become a cop for Miami Metro. So because he himself was violent and has experience with other people who hid their violent tendencies, he was the only one in the department who suspected Dexter of living a fake life, and this man was on a mission to catch Dexter red-handed. Because of this, I really enjoyed the little rivalry that he and Dexter had going on throughout the show. And when Dokes ended up being framed as the Bay Harbor Butcher due to trying to get the blood slides he found hidden in Dexter's apartment examined by a private lab, only for the cops to find the blood slides in his own car before he could ship them off to be examined, thus incriminating himself, was crazy to see. And when he finally caught Dexter in the act, I honestly thought this would be the biggest turning point in the story, and Dexter was going to be forced to either kill him or flee Miami and start a new life somewhere else. But no, instead he kept them locked up in the cabin that he used for killing one of Estrada's men, the guy who killed his mother, and ultimately decided that he was gonna commit to getting Dokes framed as the Bay Harbor Butcher. And the conversations between these two was some of the best in the series, as it showed that he and Dexter weren't so different, as they both believed their kills were justified and that they were doing society a service by ridding the world of evil. Unfortunately, Lila kills Dokes before Dexter could commit to getting him framed, and thus ending Dokes' story here. Lila West. Crazy bitch. No, I don't think Dexter actually loved her, but rather got attached to her since he believed she accepted him as a serial killer, only to then find out she herself was mentally unstable after she tried to get his friend Angel accused of date rape in order to make him go back to her after their breakup. She was the one who released the valve pressure for a gas canister next to a stove and turning it on high, killing Dokes in an explosion. She even tried to kill his stepkids by trapping them in her apartment and setting it on fire. Did I mention that she's an arsonist? Yeah, I hated her character so much, and it was so satisfying to watch her get killed in the end by Dexter, even though she tried to escape all the way to France. Brian Moser, Dexter's biological brother and the ice truck killer. He was a better serial killer than Dexter and was an actual full-blown sociopath. The way he perfected his kills over the years, never getting caught and never leaving a trace, shows he was way more skilled and intelligent than Dexter. The only reason he dies in the end is because he wanted to connect back with his little brother and free him of the code Harry gave him, so the two of them could kill freely and be an unstoppable duo. This doesn't happen as Dexter knows Brian is too evil to be let out into the world, and so he needed to be put down even though he didn't want to. Brian didn't put up a fight, instead letting his brother kill him, because to him, living a life where he and his little brother couldn't be free together to do what they wanted is a world he didn't want to live in, leaving Dexter deeply hurt from this entire ordeal, and being the best killer, leaving the biggest impact in the show. The last thing I want to talk about is the death of Rita and the way Harrison was just left there to watch. Rita, in my opinion, was the best person for Dexter in his life. She was, in a way, broken like him, since she suffered being in an abusive relationship with Paul and was left with some PTSD. Because of this, watching her grow from being a timid woman to becoming stronger for the sake of her family is really nice to watch. And not to mention, she was the most loyal partner for Dexter, because despite being cheated on with Lila, having to deal with Dexter wanting to have his own space, and with what she thought was another heroin user, even though that was a lie by Dexter in order to cover up the fact that he knocked out Paul and was the one responsible for putting him back in jail where he got killed, she still stuck with him through it all and wanted to make the relationship work no matter what. Dexter knew this, and by the end of season 4, for the first time, he had real hope for the future, wanting Rita to be in his life no matter what. Unfortunately, Dexter's own mistake and greed of wanting to take his time with the Trinity killer, thinking he could have learned something from him, was his biggest mistake and cost Rita her life, as they were planning on going to their honeymoon as a way to get Rita and Harrison along with the stepkids out of town, while Dexter stayed to finally kill the Trinity killer, Arthur Mitchell. Unfortunately, Rita had forgot her ID for the flight they had scheduled, meaning she went back home to retrieve it and schedule another flight. However, Trinity was also there and killed her by having her femoral artery slashed and was left in the bathtub to bleed out, with Harrison being left alone to sit there and watch his mother die. Dexter kills Arthur and comes back home to hear the voice message Rita left for him saying she forgot her ID and returned, only for Dexter to hear the faint crying of Harrison and walking in to find Rita dead in the bathtub, realizing that his son had basically suffered the same fate he did as a child, and that they were both, quote-unquote, born in blood. This ending for season 4 was so sad, and I was left thinking just how ironic it was for Dexter's own son to have to suffer a similar fate, all because of Dexter's own greed and carelessness while dealing with the Trinity killer. Knowing now that any hope for a future with Rita is completely ripped away from him, now having to raise his son alone. And you know this affected him a lot, since he literally kills a random guy out of frustration when confronting his feelings from losing his wife. To me, this was where the show really reached its peak, and anything after this was good, but very frustrating to watch, as in some ways they did build and add more depth to Dexter's character, but in others ruined what was already established and made him repeat mistakes he would have already known better than to repeat.
I am the last person you want to fuck with, because I will fuck you back in ways you never even imagined.
Overall though, I really would recommend that anybody who hasn't watched the show to go do so, as I think it is one of the best pieces of media out there to experience. But that is just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with me, or did you disagree with some parts of the video? Whenever I make videos like this, I always enjoy reading all of the comments that I get, since I'm not a big channel and I don't regularly receive much feedback. But otherwise, that's all for now. See ya. Subscribe, bozo.